I want to do a story that never gets talked about on the mainstream media, and also rarely by independent media as well, and that's the abuse by the kidnapping, corrupt, money-hungry, ruthless system that is social services, or CPS. There's a story that finally came out on the Houston News blog, Houston Press local publication, about the death of a 2-year-old Texas girl that was taken away by her parents because her parents smoked pot. The daughter was taken away, Alex Hill, and was sent to a foster home. Now, the local publication here doesn't mention the story that Jonas Hill, the father of this 2-year-old that was killed in protective foster care custody, the father, Joshua Hill, was an activist for legalized marijuana. Because he was an activist in Texas for legalizing marijuana, police raided his home. And when police raided his home, they found one joint. And because of that one joint, they took away his daughter, Alex Hill, away from him. And now this story gets even crazier. It happens that social services, child protective services of Texas, sent this daughter to a house filled with mildew and mold, where she was bruised when her parents were finally able to see her, and the father, Joshua Hill, had to risk arrest to demand that his daughter be taken away from that foster home. What does Child Protective Services of Texas do? They put her in a home from a former crackhead who has an extensive criminal record. They took a 2-year-old daughter away from someone who wanted legalized marijuana, who had one joint, that smoked it, away from the child. The investigation proved he only smoked a joint when the daughter was sleeping upstairs. He went away from her, didn't smoke around her, but they put her in a second home with a crack cocaine addict, a former crack cocaine addict with a long history of criminal behavior. Now, sadly, little Alex Hill was beat so bad that she died. And only just today did the perp, Cheryl Smith, who brought in the child in for foster care, was sentenced for life, for murder. Now, she's finally being held accountable for murdering a 2-year-old girl. But the state of Texas, Child Protective Services of Texas, are not being held responsible for their action. This story is just insane and crazy, and no one really reports on it except this small local newspaper. We recently did a report out from London, England, about the story of Jonas Staden. Now, these are the parents of Jonas, who was also taken away by social services in the UK. The 4-year-old had Down syndrome. He died from a bacterial infection. His parents were not allowed to see him. They tried to tell social services he needed special medication. They wouldn't listen to him. They ignored him. And sadly, 4-year-old Jonas Staden has died in the care of this ruthless organization that's not only here in the United States, but also in the UK, acting just ruthlessly, without any responsibility, without any oversight, without any kind of just responsibility at all. We did serious stories about this with my friend Carlos Morales. He's a former CPS whistleblower. We did one story about some of the horrendous stories of what he underwent as a CPS worker, of how the CPS gets paid. There's an incentive. It's a commission-based jobs. The more children that CPS takes away from their parents, the more money they actually get. So Carlos just broke down everything that's wrong with Child Protective Services in the United States in this video. You can watch it right now in the annotations. And he got over 400 people emailing him in situations where the CPS was overstepping their boundaries. Only 22,000 people watched this video. 400 of them had problems with the CPS. Now, of course, child abuse is a very serious issue. Of course, people who get abused should not be in the custody of parents who are abusive. We know that. But when the answer to the problem is worse than the problem, we have to ask ourselves questions. What are we doing here? This is a serious issue. No one is talking about this issue, but it needs to talk about, and I really commend Carlos Morales. He has a website, truthovercomfort.net. This man does everything for free. He helps people who are in horrible situations. If Joshua Hill and if all these other parents could have got in contact with Carlos, Carlos could have helped them, because he knows the tricks that CPS workers use on parents, on how they lie and manipulate situations to get children away from their parents. There's also some scary statistics that Carlos breaks down. He says when kids are put in foster homes, they are 7 to 8 times more likely to be abused. They're 6 times more likely to die. They're 20 times more likely to be homeless later on in their life. And they're 3 times more likely to be put on psychotropic drugs, which is another incentive. Everything is fueled by money, including this bureaucratic state, because the more kids that the CPS takes away, the more money they get from the state. If they're able to put the kids on psychotropic drugs, Ritalin, Prozac, whatever you may call it, whatever syndrome they make up that this kid has, they even get more money. And these foster parents also get money from taking in children. And a lot of them are desperate for money, just like this family that was living with a crack cocaine addict, and for some reason the foster home families are not held to the same standards as other people's families. This is another conundrum here. The article mentions it here. The foster care family do not get checked, do not get the same scrutiny, the same laws put up against them, the same prosecution as do regular parents. It's a whole system that is incredibly terrible. Now, check out Truth Over Comfort. Carlos Morales, he's doing everything for free based on your donations. He will help you out, if you donate to him or not. Get these stories out, because it seems like no one else wants to talk about this serious issue. Child abuse is a very horrendous, horrible thing that no minor should ever be put through. And to see the state, to see social services in the UK, to see child protective services in Texas get away with such horrible actions with no legal accountabilities put up against them, no responsibility at all, it is sickening. Spread this video if you found it useful. If there's other people who are in other horrible situations, pass this video on towards them, pass them on towards Carlos Morales. Thank you again so much for watching.